So we missed a week when it came to doing these videos. Pardon me there. Bangs got in the way. Okay, so you may have noticed that last week we didn't do a video, and that's because I had a bit of a mental health issue. Some of the subject matter we talked about brought up some bad memories, and there's a lot of other things that went on. My favorite person lost somebody, and I felt bad that I couldn't be there to help them through that. Just the never ending having to be here all the time. It really just kind of compounded into a really bad mental health crisis. And I had one yesterday as well, because this time of year, Valentine's Day tends to trigger me off a bit. But so we're still kind of going through that mental health crisis as well, but we're working through it. We've been working on using anti-anxiety music and stuff like that. So I felt comfortable enough to do a video this week. So we're going to make up for that by doing a video this week. So let's go ahead and get this video going. What's happening, Captain? What's new, kangaroos? It's your dandy, Candy. And welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Was I Thinking? Where we go over some of the pieces that we've done throughout the years and try to explain to you what they represent. This episode, we've got 6 pieces that we're going to be going over. A lot of them have to deal with an area I know quite well. They always tell you to paint what you know, work with what you know, and well, what I know is being batshit crazy. So these are going to be pieces that involve the psyche, and so let's go ahead and get on into them, shall we? Now, in this one, we're going to be talking about 3 pieces that are actually a trinity. They go together. They're called the Tempest. Tempest 1, Tempest 2, Tempest 3. And these represent my mental landscape. A tempest is essentially a raging storm over the ocean. And that is kind of how my mind feels most of the time, like a never-ending raging storm, like a tempest. So each one of these represents different aspects of that tempest, how I think and the way that I react to things. So the first one of these is Tempest 1. And this piece represents the passage of time to me. I've spent most of my life by myself, isolated. I feel like I've been in a bit of an oubliette. And if you don't know what an oubliette is, it's an old medieval prison, essentially, that's a hole in the ground that you put people into to forget. And I've felt like that most of my life. That's part of why I have so many abandonment issues, for example, and why I have such a hard time letting go of people when it's time to let go of people, and cling to people. And it makes people think I'm a narcissist, and I'm not trying to control anyone. I'm just trying to keep people from leaving. So this piece, it's about time, passage of time, how I view things. Like, now, in this piece, you'll notice that the person standing there has 404 written in their eyes. And that's because their mind is blank, because they're essentially disassociating, thinking over the passage of time. You'll see flowers that are in bloom and wilting off in the background, as well as a series of clocks of different times. It's more or less just watching life pass by without being able to do anything about it or really experience any of the joys in it. Always just off in the distance, hence the stars in the background across a black border. That's kind of how I view life. Like, people just come and go, and when they leave, they have such great time. So they move on and they flourish and thrive. And all I can do is just watch people move on and grow older, fall in love, start careers. Well, I'm just kind of stuck. And all I can do is just watch, So that's Tempest 1. It's about the passage of time, watching life flash me by, and there's nothing I can really do about it. On to our next piece. Now, you may notice that these paintings are a little bit faded, by the way. I thought I'd throw this in there. That's because when I made these ones, I didn't put a seal on them, and that they've just been kind of sitting around, got a little scuffed up. We'll be touching them up eventually if we decide to sell them, because, again, everything that we're talking about, we do intend to sell. These will go for about $600 a pop. They're rather big. Okay, so let's get on to the next piece then, shall we? Now, our second piece in the Tempest Trinity is adequately named Tempest 2. And this one has to deal with my communication problems that I have. I've always had a hard time trying to get the thoughts that I have in my head out of my mouth and make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? So in this piece, you have question marks in the eyes. That's me trying to formulate what I'm trying to say, and I can't figure out how to say it. With a crack in the head with all these little balls popping out of it. Now, those are just thoughts, random thoughts, just popping around like a tombola machine. Out of the mouth, you have all these word bubbles with extra mouths that also have word bubbles coming out, forming extra mouths that have word bubbles coming out, forming extra mouths. That's to illustrate how I oftentimes don't manage to get my point across when I'm trying to explain something or say something. So I always have a hard time with words, and that's why I usually paint or I write poetry or make things, because it's easier for me to express these big thoughts and big feelings and emotions that I have through visual medium than it is for me to verbally express them. Whether I'm just trying to get something simple across or something complex, complimenting someone and it turning out the wrong way, uh, trying to explain a very difficult life that I've had without it coming across like I'm whining or pissing someone off. I always have this hard time explaining things, and that's what this piece represents. Is that jumbleness of how the words coming out of my mouth don't always come out the way I mean them to. On to our next piece. Now, on to the third of the trinity of the Tempest that we have, also adequately named Tempest 3. Tempest 3 is about disassociation. That's a thing that I do quite often during the day, during the night, all the time. I am oftentimes in some way, shape, or form disassociating. It's just how my brain works. The piece itself, you'll notice that there's clouds behind the mask on this one as it's vomiting rainbows out of its mouth. And it's got 2020 in the eyesight. That's not for the year 2020, which I'm sure everybody wants to forget. That's the old saying, hindsight is 2020. And in the center of the head, you'll notice that there's a viewfinder. The folks that were born with a 20 in the beginning of their birth date, that was an old-timey toy that people back in my day used to play around with, that basically was pictures on a disc that you slid through a little viewfinder and you could see the neat little pictures. Kind of like film reels, but I'm explaining old people shit. What this is disassociation. When I think, I'm a visual thinker. I know that's a rarity apparently with some folks. Some folks don't think visually at all. My brain feels a lot like I'm in a movie theater with 100,000 movies going off all at once at the same time. I'm just essentially in a ball of film reels, reliving the past, the present, my worries about the future, my dreams about the future, possible what ifs and what abouts, all at the same time. And it gets very difficult for me to focus on a subject when I'm disassociating, because I've got all these thoughts going through my head. And it's not just maybe a little thought here or there. It's literally a full cinematic experience that I'm seeing when that happens. That's why it has a viewfinder there. That pretty much explains the piece. It's just how I view my thoughts. My thoughts are constantly going, constantly streaming. Like, again, that's why these are called the Tempest. My brain feels like a never-ending storm. And I'm a visual thinker, so I mean, that's essentially it. So now that we're done with the Tempest series, let's go ahead and go on to the next three pieces that we're going to be talking about in this video. I thought these would be a little longer to explain, but not really. They're pretty self-explanatory, and I'm kind of okay with that. They're very complex looking. They're very busy looking, because I'm a bit of a maximalist. You know this. And I like to make the stuff that I talk about or want to express a little more colorful and cartoony and joyous looking, even if the subject matter itself is kind of dreary and depressing and serious, because it's just a spoonful of sugar. So on to our next piece. Now, our next piece that we're going to be talking about is called Impermanence, and impermanence means nothing's permanent. Duh. In the center of this piece, you'll see a skull with all of these things coming out of it. Skulls in artwork represent various things. They can represent death, obviously, poison on a poison bottle. But another thing that they can represent is the fragility of life. Usually when I drink, I salute with a skull to remind myself to enjoy the fragility of life, because one day it'll all be gone. And that is essentially what this piece is about. The things that are coming out of the skull are, there's a clock in the center of it, passage of time. Time marches on even when you're gone. You've got roses. Those represent love. Love is not permanent. Birthday candles representing life. You got money coming out of it as well, which again, money is temporary. All of these are things to not try to cling on to and hold on to, because everything has its time and place. And in the end, everything is impermanent. So you should just appreciate what you have when you have it, because one day it'll be gone. And holding on to the thoughts and the memories of that it's that helps, but trying to hold on to something when it's long past time for it to go, it's not good. So this is it's kind of a reminder of to appreciate what you have when you have it. There's a saying I learned from Taoism, because I've been studying Taoism to help me with my BPD. It's I possess but I do not own. Now, I find that to be very difficult. I really do, but it has also helped me quite a bit. And this piece itself, even though it does seem a little bit spooky, even though it's colorful, actually really helped me out last night when I was having a really bad mental health crisis. I was just in tears, wrapped up in a blanket, just holding myself as best I could, because I've just gotten so stir crazy from being in this house all the time, not being able to communicate with people and not being able to be there for my friends, my favorite person, and just all that pain bundled up. It I tend to bottle my emotions because they're so complex, and I feel them so raw. And looking at that painting really helped me out to remember that, I got to let go of things. So, and that everything's temporary, this too shall pass. So that's that piece, impermanence. On to our next piece. Now, this piece, when I originally painted it, it represented something else, but I feel it represents something even more accurately. It was called Princess, I believe. It's been a while since I painted it, so I can't remember the titles of all my pieces. But if you'll notice in a lot of my work, when I'm painting something that represents myself, I go between painting myself in either a masculine way or a feminine way. Oftentimes, I paint myself in a more feminine light because that's how I view myself internally versus the masculine perspective that people see externally on a day to day. And this piece, you'll see two faces. One of them is happy, joyous, smiling, sunny, pretty, petite. The other side is angry, screaming, with a crown over its head, eyes in the background staring. And what this piece represents to me, the thing I feel it represents more appropriately, and what it originally represented, was my sensation of gender dysphoria, which is a thing I deal with a lot. And there's a few pieces that I've done about gender dysphoria, which we'll go over those eventually. But what I really feel that this piece represents more appropriately is a BPD split episode, having that moment where everything's fine 1 second and then one thing triggers you off and it just becomes a cascade of feelings and emotions and thoughts that you just can't hold in. And you end up going into this crash out, essentially. You yell, you get angry, you become impulsive, you do things that you would never naturally normally do on a day-to-day basis, because you just want to get all of this raw emotion out of you. And it feels like the world's just kind of a lie, that all people do is just stare at you and laugh at you and mock you. Nobody really cares, and they just want to talk about you behind your back, like thank God I'm not them. And so it feels like it represents that more appropriately than just dysphoria. I mean, dysphoria is one of those triggers for me, but it's not the only trigger for me. There's a lot of things that are, and sometimes I don't even know when I'm going to have something that triggers an episode. I've been having a lot of them lately because I've been stuck inside this apartment for over a year, essentially, not being able to communicate with people. Most people that I used to talk to stopped talking to me after my mom had her accident in July. They just stopped talking to me. And I've only had maybe one or two people that have checked in. My favorite person is the one that's checked in, and I very much appreciate them for doing that, because I don't have a lot of people to talk to, and they've been going through a lot of stuff and haven't been able to talk to me as well. So I've just been back to being alone again, with no one to really help me out through these things. And I don't expect anybody to be there for me to help me out. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm grateful for the people that are there, but I have to learn how to take care of myself and find the calmness in that quiet. And that's very difficult for me because I'm so used to being left behind, being abandoned, and being alone by myself with just my raging thoughts. So I have crash outs quite a bit, especially on the weekends, because I don't have any work to do on the weekends. And it's just me by myself with nothing to do all day, looking at four walls, maybe going out for a walk that feels more like a hamster wheel at this point because I just go to the same place over and over again. And yeah, on holidays like this, Valentine's Day has always been difficult for me, mainly because it's a holiday that codifies the heteronormativity of society that we have, where it's everybody needs to be coupled up, or else you should be ashamed of yourself for being single. And I've always had a hard time with relationships, mainly because people expect me to be one way based on how I physically am. And when I open up to them about how I am on the inside, it changes a lot of perspective. And men don't really care. Men just see me as cheap sex. Let's be real. But women, who I am more fond of women, um, they see me as weak and pathetic. And I understand that. I understand that. I'm not, but I understand that. I'm emotional. I want to support someone as an equal, as a partner, not just as a, your typical type of relationship. And when that cat comes out of the bag, it, I end up not being what they were expecting me to be, and it's difficult for me to try to rein that back in and be what they want me to be. So relationships have always been hard for me, and Valentine's Day tends to be one of those holidays that reminds me of how inadequate I tend to be in relationships. And as much as I love the color format, I mean, pinks and reds, hello, I love me some pinks and reds. The holiday itself just reminds me of how alone I am. So that tended to be a bit of a catalyst for my crash out as well the other night. On to our next piece. Now, before I get into that, because I just opened up a whole can right there talking about Valentine's Day and my feelings of being alone. Even though I wish I was with someone, I mean, who doesn't wish that they found their equal, their soulmate, their partner? I also am kind of scared of being with people too because of that. And so I don't really look for relationships anymore. I mostly just look for friendships because friendships are more comfortable and safe to me than anything more intimate than that would be. So that's also a part of why I'm single too, and I'm okay with that, to be honest with you, because I've had my heart broken too many times, and it always breaks even more, and so I'm good with that. And I'm happy for the people that I have in my life that have found someone that they love and that makes them feel happy and joyous. I love love, but I also know it's not really suited for me. So on to our last piece. This piece is called Phoenix, and it represents quantum immortality. Now, I know you probably are sick and tired of hearing about quantum immortality. You've probably only known about it through the Marvel movies, which, let's be real, Marvel didn't even fucking create the idea of the multiverse first in comic book format. That was DC. But even before DC had it, the concept of quantum immortality has been a thing. Quantum immortality is the concept that when you die, you don't really die, you just start your life over again. And that every experience that you've had, every choice, every decision, at some point in time gets made. Whether you did or didn't do something, there is a timeline where that did occur or didn't occur. And essentially, we just repeat ourselves over and over and over again until all possible outcomes have been resolved. It's not, it seems kind of weird and funky, multiversal, pseudoscience-y, and you get into it however you want to. But I love the concept of quantum immortality. And this piece is about that. It's not a bird, although their outfit does look like feathers and they do have wings. This is the higher self, essentially, the universal totem of who you are outside of your body, with all of these astral flames behind them, symbolizing rebirth. The suit itself that they're wearing, the collar that they're wearing, is faces made to look like feathers. Those represent the different variations of their life that they've already lived or will live. And their crown that they have, their little hat on top of their head, is a checkerboard pattern of skulls and eyes. That's representing life and death. So it's essentially quantum. It's essentially just that idea that, yeah, basically that. It's a little out there, a little funky. I really love how the colors came out on this piece. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is one of those pieces I did with blacklight paint. I'm not 100% on that. It's been a while. And it's just a very, very nice concept that even though you may feel like you have messed up somewhere, or that things should have worked out in some way, whether that be you kept a job you loved doing rather than quitting it, or somebody didn't buy a car and then drive halfway across the state so that you end up ruining your finances and being isolated for months on end. Or a person that you had a crush on turns out they actually liked you back and it wasn't limerence. That's happened to me several times. And another reason why I'm kind of shy about having feelings for people, because it almost always turns into limerence and they don't think of me that way. So it's that idea that all of the things that you missed out on, you didn't actually miss out on. In another timeline, you experienced them. Because we're a three-dimensional person in a three-dimensional universe, we will eventually experience them in some way, shape, or form, because time is a fourth-dimensional concept. So that is essentially that, quantum immortality, the idea that you just repeat yourself over and over and over again. And that'll do it for our pieces there. If you want to check out some of our stuff, we got an Etsy shop, link right there. Not everything that we have in this video or is on our Etsy shop. So if you're interested in purchasing something, or you want to print or something, the bigger ones are kind of hard for me to get prints, because I mostly just go down to FedEx Kinko's to get them done. Sorry, I'm broke, I'm cheap, I got to get them done however I can. But stuff like the Phoenix piece, the Princess piece, Impermanence, I could easily get prints made of those if there's anybody interested. Hit me up on my social medias. I got Blue Sky and Instagram. And if you feel like helping out the channel, helping us out a bit, because we're kind of strapped for cash, having to not be able to work, having to be here all the time. And, it always helps out the channel, getting more art supplies and things of that nature. Venmo link right there. My mouth is a bit cottony. So let's go ahead and finish this up. This has been Candy Dandy. Thank you for your time. And I hope you have a good one and a happy Valentine's Day. Even though this is going to be out after Valentine's Day, I shot it on Valentine's Day. You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and finish. We're done. Cut.